left off. I think it ended on a sudden abrupt note when you said it is difficult to change economists after they find out the empirical validity of their claims, especially with specific emphasis on the orthodox ones. I think the meeting just abruptly ended on that, and then now we're back.
Okay.
So,
Well, the problem is
but
in the social sciences, you can't do controlled experiments. So
yes,
you're working with data, and um, you know, the
it's
data just isn't very convincing.
yeah,
It
but
can be interpreted different ways. So um, you like Keynes said, uh, you have to convince people. You can't convict them, and
mm,
they will be convinced by the weight of the argument.
mm,
So you have to have a very strong argument, and it needs to be theoretical, um, in addition to being empirical.
as well.
And the problem with orthodoxy is where they start is with this, individual that maximizes utility, and
Yes.
they have rational expectations and all of that. So that's where they begin their analysis, and so they're going to interpret the data as being generated from these utility maximizing,
Agents.
completely rational people, right? So it's pretty rare to have economists change their mind just because of the data. I think for those two reasons. It's not a controlled experiment, and
Though
it
the
depends on where you.
economists who espouse this are themselves the most irrational beings of them all. Like,
Well, they're. I I don't believe that their approach is scientific.
yeah,
So, um, yes, it's a social science, but there still is a scientific way
mm,
to approach it, to
yes,
approach economics, even though it's a social science, not a so-called hard science. Um, but that's not what they do.
yeah,
Their method is not a scientific method. Their method is you sit at your desk and imagine
mm,
what a person who has perfect rationality, how they might behave, rather than let's observe how humans behave.
yes.
Right? That's not what they do.
Also, another thing that I've noticed is they have appropriated the critiques leveled against them, or for example, they've appropriated behavioral economics. They've also they refuted by saying, "Hey, man, this is a model. We have our set of assumptions. You know, this is a model, and that's all we can do. We're trying to model things, so we can't really give you the entire picture." And they sort of insulate themselves from any further critique, which is a very, what should I say? Um, it's a way of escaping by the very act of modeling.
Yeah, a lot of behavioral economics is no better than
Yes,
what I just described, sitting in your chair and imagining. Um, it's my original undergrad studies were in psychology,
amazing.
and behavioral economics is a huge step back
Okay.
from how psychologists understand human behavior. Um, so uh, I would pretty much reject what behavioral economics does too. I don't think it's much better.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to know how people behave, ask a psychologist, a sociologist. Don't ask an economist. Now, there are exceptions. Veblen, uh, the father of institutional economics,
Yes.
was very good at observing and writing about human behavior, and he formulated a scientific method for economists to follow, which is based on evolution
Yes.
and institutions and the evolution of institutions, which is why it's called institutional economics. So your behavior is largely shaped by institutions, the institutions of the society in which you live,
Mm.
and these institutions are always evolving.
Mm.
Some of the institutions he calls imbecilic.
Okay.
Uh, they no longer serve a useful purpose. We've inherited them from our past. And then others are very useful institutions. And what you need to do is weed out the imbecilic institutions,
Mhm.
and you know, pay attention to the institutions that are actually useful
Positive.
in solving the main economic problems: adequate food, clothing, shelter, and
Yes.
all of that.
Hmm. I think that's quite actually fascinating. I think this is a lesser touched upon side of Veblen's work, right? Imbecilic institutions. I think I'm more familiar with, I think his more popular works such as cumulative causation and historical specificity and the Veblen effect and all of that. So, but nice.
All of those are in Veblen, yes,
Yes, fair enough. But I
a
think,
hundred years
but even today, I think it's just ultra progressive and ultra futuristic. Like some of the works in political economy and institutional, it's till date, it's futuristic. The concepts, like, so it's unreal. But I do want to sort of touch upon as to how you had formulated MFT's idea of trade. And incidentally, I'm actually learning trade as one of my subjects in college right now. And the main thing that I see, at least in the orthodox space, with regards to trade, is it is being conceived of as only something that takes place between two nations. The individual firms aren't influenced by their individual microeconomics, nor their circumstance, their endowments, the global market space, so to speak. So it happens as though it's a calculation between two nations, and all these nations are homogenous in every which way possible. So I find it to be rather parochial and very very unidimensional in a way. So how did sort of MMT go against the traditional, the neoclassical and the even the political economy, the Ricardian version of trade and the Adam Smithian version of trade and all of that? How did that sort of come to?
Well, I never studied the Orthodox approach to trade
Yeah.
because I studied in America. The
Yes.
rest of the world, when I studied economics, the rest of the world did not matter. The US was virtually a closed economy.
Yes.
Um, and it just wasn't a topic
Okay.
that was covered. Um, now, after graduating from school, I have in my own work dealt a bit with it, but I wouldn't want to spend a lot of time trying to criticize the Orthodox because I'm not an expert on the Orthodox approach.
Mm.
Um, but usually people are very worried about exchange rates,
Yes.
um, and they think that exchange rates are related to trade,
Mm.
and that if you run a trade deficit, it's going to depreciate your currency, and then you can import inflation, and you can have lots of problems there. And then your central bank might react to that by raising interest rates
And yeah.
uh, to try to strengthen your currency. Anyway, uh, there could be some countries for which trade is a major determinant of their exchange rate,
Mm.
but this is not true for any of the major developed countries.
Yes.
Uh, what matters is the capital accounts, not the
And
trade accounts.
yes.
The dollar is held around the world not because people want to buy U.S. output.
Mm.
It's held as an asset.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so other countries, other major countries, to a lesser degree, their currencies are also in demand as
Yes.
financial assets, as part of your diversified portfolio.
Mm.
Um, even a small country like Australia, where Bill Mitchell is,
Mm-hmm.
I think he would point this out that, at one point, financial markets said, hey, we should diversify into Australian dollars too.
Yes.
And so Australia runs trade deficits, and their currency it goes up and down, but it remains relatively strong. There's no
Yeah.
long-term trend toward the currency falling because uh, people wanted Australian dollars in their portfolio of assets. So even a relatively small economy can issue a currency without worrying much about the exchange rate. Now,
Mhm.
there's one thing that uh, MMT has been known for, uh, and it should be pretty obvious. Uh, when uh, when Trump started running for office the first time, he said, "In trade, America is a loser. We're losing in trade because we buy all their stuff,
Mhm.
right? And we get nothing in return.
Yes.
They're accumulating our dollars and we're getting nothing in return." And Stephanie Kelton's son, when he was just a kid, maybe he was 9 years old, he saw Trump saying that on TV and he turned to Stephanie and he said, "Hold it. We get all the stuff they send us. We're winning at trade," right? So this has been something that MMT has been pointing out that if you're a net importer, you're winning in trade because other countries are working really hard and producing stuff so that you can consume them. You get to consume more if you import more than you export. The exporting nations are the losers. Their people are working hard, but they don't get to consume anything.
Yes.
Okay. So, you know, there's an aspect to that that
Yes.
gets forgotten
Yes.
that China works hard to send output all over the world
Mhm.
and their people don't get to consume it. Okay. However, China knows what it's doing.
Mhm.
China had a strategy uh, to develop its economy, and it's been extremely successful at developing its economy by um, learning by doing and producing goods at a high enough standard that the rest of the world wants them.
Yes.
So they had to compete with the world's best output.
Yes.
And that made them focus on improving the quality of all of their products. So there is that. It's also part of a development strategy for countries that have to import capital goods.
Mm.
If you don't have manufacturing at a level that can produce your capital equipment, you need to import those.
Yes.
And if you're going to import them, you really need dollars.
Yes.
So you can get them from the US or change the dollars into euros and buy them from Germany.
Yeah, you could do
And so,
that. I mean, I think that part isn't even covered in textbooks. I mean, this easy way of changing your dollars. Yeah.
well, I think that used to be covered.
Yeah.
Uh, but again, I didn't study it. But I think that the infant industries argument
Yes.
used to be made in textbooks before the Lucas
Yeah.
Chicago approach took over all the textbooks. So I think if you had studied in the 60s, you would have gotten arguments as to why um, countries need to protect their domestic infant industries and why it's a good idea to earn dollars
Yes.
by exporting what you can produce and trying to protect your exchange rate. So I think there are aspects to all of those arguments that are true. So it depends case by case. You got to look at each country and see what position they're in. It's very easy for a rich developed country to promote free trade and say free trade is great. Okay. But those rich countries did not have to develop
Yes.
under a
Yes.
regime of free trade. They
Yes.
all blocked trade, right?
Yes.
They all blocked capital flows. And I think capital constraints are more important than the trade constraints, trade barriers. Capital constraints are essential
Mm.
for developing nations to prevent people like George Soros. Now,
And,
uh, George Soros gets too much criticism. He does good things too, but too much criticism uh, I mean, there is legitimate criticism about the ability of a multi-billionaire to go bet against your currency and make a lot of money and crash your economy by crashing your currency, right? And so you need to protect yourself from that.
That, yes. So, yes, I think it's one thing leading to another, like an interconnected system of things that really work, but that really work itself out. In the context of I think with modern monetary theory, are there any modern monetary tools apart from uh, sorry, the traditional ones that are used, such as interest rates and open market operations? If there was something that was radically proposed, how feasible is it for people to actually use them? Because I think the tools that we have now at our disposal in terms of controlling the variables at hand are very limited across nations. So if there were to be a new monetary tool, how effectively can it be used, or how effectively can it be introduced within a short span of time?
Well, okay. I think there's a tendency to uh, to put too much into MMT.
Hmm.
Okay, I see MMT as part of making some contributions to
True.
heterodox
Yeah.
economics. And if you want to talk about the financial sector and the role of the central bank and let's say the treasury
Yes.
in the financial sector, then I think you want to look at the work of people like Hyman Minsky
Yes.
because that's what they focused on.
Yes.
And so I think that they will give you better answers than MMT because MMT has been more focused
Um,
on fiscal policy
okay.
and explaining how the government really spends, why you don't have to raise taxes just because you want to increase government spending. Um, and it's critical of some of the mainstream approaches like raising interest rates to try
Yes.
to fight inflation.
Indeed.
So MMT proponents have argued, well, in the first place, interest is a cost of doing business. So if you're raising interest rates, then it's going to get passed along in costs.
Yes.
And so it's inflationary. So you're trying to fight inflation by causing inflation when you raise the interest rate,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
And then if you look at what kinds of spending are interest sensitive,
Hmm.
um, well, investment,
Hmm.
housing construction, uh, those things tend to be interest sensitive. People will postpone building a house if it's really
Yes.
expensive to borrow. Um, and firms might postpone investment if interest rates are high. Well, if you don't build houses and you have a housing shortage and that's contributing to inflation, again, raising interest rates is going to increase inflation pressures
Yes.
because you're not solving the problem.
Yes.
So when you look at where interest rates might have an impact, uh, you will see that raising rates is the wrong answer. What you
Yes.
want to do is stimulate housing construction. So I'm talking about the United States today. We have a severe housing shortage, and
Okay.
housing is accounting for most of our inflation. So
Yes.
raising interest rates is the wrong thing to do.
Yeah.
So you would want to tackle inflation a different way.
Yes.
And interest is also an income.
Yes.
And who is generally the biggest debtor in a major economy? Well, your national government
Mm,
is
yes.
the biggest debtor, right? And we don't worry about the debt. The government can always make payments on the debt, but
Yes.
the higher the interest rate that you have,
The higher
the
the
more interest income the government has to spend.
yes.
And there are two bad things about government interest spending.
Hmm.
One is it goes to the wealthy
Yes.
because low income people don't hold government debt, right?
Yes.
It's rich people who hold government debt and foreigners in the case of the United States.
Yes.
So here we are, the government is spending money going to the rich and going to foreigners.
Yes.
That's doing our country no good at all. In fact, I would say it's bad for our country to give more income to the rich because they go buy yachts,
Yes.
right? Which adds inflation pressure.
Yeah.
So MMT is known for advocating keeping interest rates low all the time.
Yes.
Okay. Because that reduces the costs. It also reduces interest income that increases inequality and
Yeah.
doesn't benefit the economy. And then you're adding to the deficit and adding to the debt because of the high interest rates. So MMT has long, from the very beginning, argued for permanently low interest rates. And that means you're not going to use interest rates to try to fight inflation. You're going to have to find some other way to fight
Wait.
inflation.
Yes.
Okay. And then I'll just say one more thing about financial markets, but this is not an MMT position. This came from Minsky, but most of us studied Minsky
Okay.
when um, uh, when I was a student, and then all
Yes.
of my
That's right.
students studied Minsky. Uh,
But in this context, I think how do you think MMT should go forward? At least for the younger generation, or the new branch of Gen Z economists and all of them. I mean, it's in what direction should they take the faction forward if they are interested in doing so?
I think that they should be studying heterodox economics,
Okay.
and MMT should be well integrated into that.
Yes.
Um, and so we need to know Marx.
Yes.
We need to know Veblen.
Yes.
We need to know Keynes.
Yes.
We need to know Minsky. We need to start with, instead of the individual utility maximizer, we start with what Keynes, Veblen, and Marx all called a monetary theory of production. So,
Hmm.
what is capitalism all about?
Yes.
It's not about individuals maximizing utility,
Yes.
it's about using money to make more money.
Yeah.
That's what capitalism is all about. So, you start there. You start with a different view of what money is all about.
Yes.
Okay, money is not important as a medium of exchange. Money is important as giving the power to the capitalist
Yes.
to make the decision about whether to produce or not.
Yes.
And the only thing the capitalist cares about is ending up with more money than they started with.
Yes.
Okay, this is Marx, Veblen, and Keynes. They all said exactly the same thing.
Yes.
You will not find this in any orthodox economics. They do not understand what capitalism is. They've got individual utility maximizers. That's where they start.
Yes.
It's the wrong place to start. Okay. Because if the capitalist doesn't believe he will end up with more money, he's not going to hire you. You're not going to have a wage. You're not going to consume.
Yes.
You're not going to be maximizing utility.
Yes.
Okay. It all starts with the capitalist decision making process. And the only thing they care about is making money. So, I mean, that's as simple as I can explain what heterodox economics is about.
Yes.
That's the fundamental starting point. Then we put MMT into that. It's not that MMT is this separate thing out there that allows you to analyze the economy. It doesn't.
Yes.
You start with a monetary theory of production.
And then you slowly progress. I think.
And then you want to explain how does the government really spend.
And,
MMT can tell you that. Okay. That's
it,
what it adds.
interestingly enough, I think the chartalist work of George Frederick Knapp, and I think even monetary circuit theory, where any principles of NMT were they tested historically, like were they tested in the 15th or the 16th or the 17th centuries, during the time of political economy or even before that? like to be playing around with budget deficits and all of that for countries.
Sure, of course. Look, the idea is that money is a chartal token.
Yes.
That's basically NAP. Money is a chartal token. Okay, in other words, it doesn't have intrinsic value. It's a
Yes.
token,
Yes.
and that is in Plato. So
Wow.
that's as far back as
That-
you can go.
oh, wow.
Okay, Eric Tamoin has a paper at the Levy Institute that demonstrates this. It's not a new idea at all. It's been dominant at some times, and then
Yeah.
other times it's not dominant.
Yes.
Okay, is gold. Okay, like the gold bugs today. Uh, but there's nothing new.
Yes.
It's as old as economics.
Yes.
People who understood that money is a token, it doesn't have value itself. It's a
Yes.
way to measure value. Those ideas are thousands of years old.
Yes.
And money itself, we know, like David Graeber says, is 5,000 years old at least. So, um,
It's so I think the entirety of the heterodox discipline all we all go way back. And I mean, ever since humans started to conduct themselves in a social and an economic sense, when they just seem to exist. But I think, at least in the American context, or rather in a global context, where do you think heterodox economics would find itself in the course of 5 or 10 years? See, I think we have a strong presence online. I think now there are different people getting exposed to sort of different works apart from the traditional orthodox economics. I mean, 15, 20 years ago, I don't think it was as present or as prominent, the heterodoxy in terms of access. I think now there's been a lot more access, but do you think, though there's been more access in the online spaces, the academia is getting more and more strong with the orthodox? Like there's a parallel evolutionary trajectory for both of these things in different spaces.
I think that, as I said before, the PhD programs are very controlled,
Yes.
but uh, academics in general, there's lots of heterodoxy. So
Yeah.
there's lots of opportunities for students to study heterodoxy. Um, it's just difficult to do the PhD.
Just difficult with PhD.
Yes.
Hmm.
You have to carefully choose. So yes, there are some places where you can do it.
Hmm.
Most places you won't be able to do it. But I think the mainstream is in a crisis,
Hmm.
and they realize they're in a crisis. Um, they're questioning themselves.
Yes.
Some of them, they're questioning themselves. Uh, their policies don't work.
Yes.
The economic performance is not good,
Yes.
and they don't really know why.
Yes.
So um, it's hard to know. They need a revolution
Yes.
of thought, and the last revolution went the wrong direction. I'm talking about Lucas,
Right.
1970, the rational expectations revolution.
Yes.
Maybe the next one will go a different direction.
Hmm.
I don't know.
So
Don't know
let's.
the answer to that.
So I guess let's wait and watch, I presume. Well, thank you for coming on board, sir. I think it was a fantastic time to sort of host you. And do you have any tips for me in general, or anything any recommendations, any suggestions as a prospective economist or as a host of the podcast?
No, not really. Just keep your eyes open. I know a few Indians. Oh, I can't remember her first name. Sen, Sen.
Marcia
who
Sen.
writes,
Yeah.
no, a different one.
Okay.
A woman,
Okay.
um, older woman who publishes at Levy. I'm just blanking on her first name right now.
Yes.
If you go to the Levy website, SEN, she just uh, sent me a new paper, and uh, she's probably well into her 90s, and she's
Wow.
still active, um, doing very good work. So
Okay.
take a look for her. And then, yes, there also are some Indians in America that
Yeah.
are heterodox that have done great work.
Nice.
The other side.
There's that.
Yeah.
Well, cool, sir. And I hope the heterodox triumphs very soon. It wins on all spaces. Well, thank you for joining, and I had a wonderful time. And yeah.
Okay. All right. Bye.